Hey everyone, evolution has a secret. It's a secret because it demolishes evolutionary theory. Now the secret has two parts. The first part is that evolutionary change is supposed to have occurred one mutation at a time. So the entire biological world, the millions and millions of species, all arose one mutation at a time. Yes, you may have two mutations or three mutations occurring simultaneously on rare occasions, but for the most part, evolutionary change must have occurred one mutation at a time. Now, the second part of this secret is that these mutations must be blind. They must not be forward-looking. You don't have mutations occurring because they're going to be needed. They're only occurring randomly. Now, you have selection. They may be selected, but only according to current need, not future need. Now, think of something as simple as a shed. If you were to build a shed, of course, you would be forward-looking. You wouldn't be doing this in the blind. You'd buy certain things. You'd be sawing and drilling and pounding in order to build this shed. You'd have this idea of a shed in mind, this mental blueprint you'd be building towards. Philosophers refer to this process as teleological. It's a fancy word for something we experience and do all the time. Life is teleological. Now think of some more complicated examples like a car or a spaceship. Of course, these are teleological. Engineers need to have blueprints. According to evolutionists, the biological world is different, and it makes no sense. Michael Behe pointed this out in his book, Darwin's Black Box. He referred to this concept as irreducible complexity. You have these complex structures that cannot arise by blind mutations only according to current conditions. A new paper has come out that I want to show you. It's all about cichlids. They are fish that have an outer jaw and an inner jaw. For years, evolutionists have thought that these jaws were independent, evolutionarily independent. Evolution could create the one, could create the other independently. It really makes no sense at all, but you could see why. They believe that the entire biological world is ateleological. You can create these things with blind mutations, so this was driving their science. They believed that these two different jaws, it's just one example of many, they believed that they were independent. The new paper is interesting because it points out that's not true. They find abundant evidence that they are dependent. They cannot be decoupled. It's another confirmation of what Behe was saying. It's another confirmation of teleology. It's another confirmation that this whole evolutionary idea, which was rather heroic to begin with, is false. So let's have a look at this paper. Here is the press release from this research from the University of Massachusetts. And here we read, researchers have long thought that the two sets of jaws are evolutionarily decoupled and can evolve independently of one another. Skipping down, such decoupling does not appear to be the case for cichlids, challenging a quarter-century-old assumption. Quote, what we've found is not just that the evolution of the two sets of jaws is linked, but that they're linked across multiple levels from genetic to evolutionary. Aha, and here's the paper itself. Here we read, our data roundly support the idea that the oral and pharyngeal jaws are integrated. So there you have it. You can read more about it in the paper. It's a refutation of this idea, this evolutionary idea that biology is decoupled, that it's dysteleological. It's yet another example of this, one of many. But what's interesting is that evolutionists do use teleological language and ideas. They communicate using teleological concepts and language all the time. I've talked quite a bit about this, and I'll show you a couple of examples right now from this very example. Here, back to the press release, it's saying here, but cichlids have a second set of jaws deeper in their throats that's made to process food once it has been captured by the first set. No, they're working together. These two sets of jaws are working together, as you might expect. They're not independent. But my point here is homing in right here, to process. Whenever you see this infinitive form, this is the infinitive form of the verb, to process. Whenever you see that infinitive form, a red flag should go up. That's teleological language. It's goal-oriented. In other words, there was a purpose, there was a reason. Cichlids have a second set of jaws deeper in their throats that's made to process food. That's teleological language. Let's go to the journal paper itself. They refer to the example of bats and how bats evolved flight, which of course is hypothetical. When bats evolved flight, they must have become lighter and their eyes must have become smaller, and that would have been a problem. They wouldn't have been able to see their prey so well, and so what did they do? Well, here it says bats circumvented this constraint by developing a specialized auditory and echolocation system for hunting. Again, the infinitive form, to hunt or for hunting. This is yet more teleological language. Evolutionists cannot avoid this. They demolish their own theory in the very way that they communicate. Religion drives science, and it matters.